So when we start thinking about things like the shadow fleet and trying to really get to grips with it, we in the military are often called upon to jump on board. It's really hard, far harder than you would think. And if you do get on board, as the Finns did with the Eagle S that it brought the crew to trial on recently in Finland, it's a really risky prosecution, as the Finns found out, because they were unsuccessful. And the crew of that vessel that was suspected of raking up cables and pipelines in the Baltic ultimately were released. And to add insult to injury, the Finnish state picked up the court costs that were over $200,000. Now, recently, the French have taken a vessel. There'll be another trial, and we'll see how well we get on with that. So these trending issues are tricky. And I'll wind up just by saying there are some practical things we can do. Of course there are. We need to enhance the inclusivity and purposefulness of our dialogue. Now, I'm here for the very first time as the Deputy Supreme Allied Commander of Europe. I mean, I'm the first ever DSACUR to come here. I was joined yesterday by the chair of the military committee, the most senior serving military officer in the alliance, and our special representative to the southern neighbourhood. As I said at the beginning, and as I will reiterate, we really know this place is important. And the Istanbul Cooperation Initiative, of which Bahrain is a member, of course, is just one of the ways. There are many others that we demonstrate that. We must invest in capability and technology to make our maritime situational awareness more effective, to protect our cyber networks, our own cyber networks and information systems, in a way that at the moment we are not doing as well as we could. And that information must be shared. And that requires nations that like each other and sometimes nations that don't like each other to actually be prepared to do it. And although the rules-based international order is under threat, we must not lower the bar. We have to maintain the standards that we hold. So, Your Excellencies, the sea connects us. It should not divide us. It carries commerce, energy, and of course, a bit of risk. But with that comes opportunity. This forum is part of that opportunity, and together we must ensure that we use it as just one way of continuing to promote the importance of getting maritime security right. Thank you very much.
Admiral, thank you so much for these remarks. I was particularly struck by your point about information sharing. Information needs to be shared. That requires cooperation. It requires a degree of institutionalization of relationships between nations and others, and your argument that we could afford to take a bit more risk in how we approach this to craft efficient and effective responses to the threat that in its many facets, as you said, is a long list, but perhaps not an entirely surprising list. So let us get into that. And I have a number of people who are already on the list seeking the floor, so I'll see that I get as many as possible in, and then we'll return to the panel for responses. And the first one is Paymana Assad from the UK. Paymana.
Thank you so much. My question is to the Admiral. The Houthis continue to target commercial and strategic shipping in the Red Sea. How does NATO view its role in supporting regional partners to protect maritime trade and ensure freedom of navigation while respecting the primary security responsibility of coastal states, considering the 5 joint naval and airstrikes against the Houthis conducted by the United States and the UK to protect trade in the Red Sea? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And from Oman and the Young Leaders Group, Hailana Al-Busaidi.
Good evening, everyone. I have one question for the panel. How does the CMF, which is a combined force of 47 nations commanded by the U.S. Navy, maintain its efforts in blocking the weaponizations of the Houthis?
Thank you very much. From the UK, John Chipman.
Yes, thank you. My question is to Admiral Sarkis and also to Zaki Mohammed. A couple of years ago at this event, General Eric Kurilla, then the CENTCOM commander, placed great emphasis on new defense technologies in carrying out his mission here. So I wonder, what are the defense tech use cases that are most relevant to the provision of effective maritime security? Undersea, on sea, in the air, in space, robotics, sensors, enablers, AI-supported situation awareness. What would ease your task? What are the defense tech use cases So perhaps you don't need to put a frigate over a cable, but put something a little bit more discreet that can even do more than a frigate can do.
Thank you very much, John. And from Lebanon, Agnes Hilou.
Agnes Hello, Breaking Defense. My question is for the Admiral. So I want to ask about the NATO office in Kuwait. How does it enhance the security of the shipping lanes? And Mr. Shipman have preceded me to the second question. I was going to ask about the unmanned surface vessels, if they are already deployed in the Red Sea and the Arabian Gulf, and or underwater vessels. Thank you.
Thank you very much. From the Netherlands, Welle Nouns.
Thank you, Bastian. My question was for Senior Minister of State of Singapore, Zaki Mohammed. Two questions for you, sir. First, how are you seeing hybrid threats as a tool of national power evolve in Asia, and what are your concerns around the trend lines there? And then secondly, I also had a question about new technology, particularly Singapore's next-gen maritime technology in terms of autonomous underwater vehicles and unmanned surface vessels. How can they help foster greater maritime security, not just in Asia, but also in this region, particularly if we think about the cross-regional security interlinkages, not least in the space of undersea cables?
Thank you very much. From Egypt and the Young Leaders Group, Sarah El-Menawi.
Thank you, Your Excellencies, and good morning. I want to ask about a recent statement by the Egyptian Foreign Minister about the Red Sea security, and that it should be governed and only governed by states bordering the Red Sea through the Red Sea Council rather than any external security architecture. My question is, since maritime security is obviously a global concern, how do you think a balance should be struck so that sovereignty does not lead to isolation and responsibility does not lead to vulnerability? Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are a lot of people on the list. I might take 3 or 4 more before we get a set of responses in. Robert Ward.
Thank you, Bastian. A question for Senior Minister of State Zaki Mohammed, if I may. Japan's new Prime Minister is already taking a highly proactive position on building out the country's defence and deterrence capabilities and plans to revise Japan's national security strategy next year. Given this, if you were able to speak to her now, what would you ask Japan to do more of to help support maritime security in the Indo-Pacific and beyond?
Thank you very much. From Indonesia, Maxine Utomo.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I have a question to the panel about the new UN Treaty on Marine Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction, the BBNJ, which will enter into force actually in January following the ratification last month by Morocco. So the question is, what is your outlook of this BBNJ treaty as a confidence-building measure to build global maritime responsibility? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last one in this round, I'll take Nick Childs.
Thank you, Bastian, and thank you to the panelists. You all, in your different ways, I think, underscored the global stakes in maritime security, but also the huge complexities. In terms of upholding freedom of navigation, there tends to have been historically a sense of the usual suspects, the traditional naval powers turning up to try and defend these principles.